regardless of it being a public or a private school, this Commonwealth of Kentucky should stand up and be grateful for what the Commonwealth of Kentucky is doing to protect our children in Kentucky.
Last-minute legislation heads to Kentucky's governor. He'll decide what becomes law. Kentucky state lawmakers gaveled out Friday to end this year's 30-day lawmaking session. More than 100 bills were passed. Many of them have been signed into law. Lawmakers also passed more than 24 bills on the final 2 days of the session. Democratic Governor Andy Beshear can decide if those measures become law without the chance of Republican supermajorities overriding his veto. Our June Leffler has more on some education legislation that is now on the governor's desk. That kicks off tonight's legislative update.
A parent offered one of the final testimonies to lawmakers this session. She says a high school counselor tried to conceal her daughter's interest in another female student.
An Anderson County high school counselor tried to override our parental rights in order to facilitate our daughter's and classmates' romantic relationship that we believed unhealthy. There were 10 phone calls between the counselor and our daughter. Many of the text and phone calls occurred outside of normal school hours, and all of them occurred without our knowledge or consent.
She spoke in favor of Senate Bill 181, which restricts electronic communications between school staff and students. All messaging outside of a school-approved platform that parents have access to would be against school rules.
And this is to put back guardrails that used to exist before we had technology so easily accessible.
Both chambers passed Senate Bill 181 unanimously on the final day of session. Another education matter with more pushback is House Bill 622. Among other things, it allows state dollars to pay for police officers at private K-12 schools. Up to $5 million a year could be spent this way. Some Democrats say that's not what public dollars are for.
I don't think that should be public money. I think if it's a private school, that should be private money.
More lawmakers say that's money well spent.
Regardless of it being a public or a private school, this Commonwealth of Kentucky should stand up and be grateful for what the Commonwealth of Kentucky is doing to protect our children in Kentucky.
The Senate and the House both approved House Bill 622 on the final day of session. Lastly, the General Assembly passed Senate Joint Resolution 55, which requires public universities to offer more resources to Jewish students who might be facing harassment because of their faith. Universities would need to keep track of reported incidents of anti-Semitism. Critics worry this could be used to silence pro-Palestinian voices.
We have seen the weaponization of this throughout our country. We have seen our government use this to turn away individuals when social media has been checked for pro-Palestinian comments, for people just supporting, ending the genocide.
A Jewish Democrat supporting the resolution says he does not want to squash that speech.
Unlike most of the Jews in the United States at this point, I still hope to someday honor a free and independent Palestine. But that shouldn't be the focus of today's conversation, because that isn't the focus of this resolution. The focus is protecting Jewish students from harassment, assault, and discrimination.
Senate Joint Resolution 55 passed out of the House with 6 no votes from Democrats. It passed out of the Senate unanimously in February. For Kentucky Edition, I'm June Leffler.
Thank you, June. Lawmakers also used the final hours of the session to amend a controversial measure that stirred up LGBTQ advocates. House Bill 495 overturned Governor Beshear's executive order banning conversion therapy on minors. It also prevents Medicaid from paying for gender-affirming medical care. On Friday, Republican Senator Robbie Mills filed a floor amendment to a different bill that he said would clarify language in House Bill 495. The change bans Medicaid from paying for cross-sex hormones to treat gender dysphoria. He was asked about the change by Democratic Senator Karen Berg.
What I saw is the need for clarification for hormone therapy that could be used in cancer treatments and things of that nature. So out of abundance of caution, this clarification was needed.
Why did we decide all of a sudden that these treatments were acceptable for every situation other than the diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Because I was under the impression that this body felt they were protecting people from these dangerous drugs. And I think that you have shown that that is extremely disingenuous.
The amendment was adopted and attached to House Bill 501. That bill allows pharmacists to fill prescriptions for 180 days in the event a patient's prescribing health care provider dies. Senator Berg, who initially voted against the bill because of the floor amendment, changed her vote, saying the underlying bill was needed. House Bill 501 passed the Senate unanimously. It also passed the House and was delivered to the governor. Well, we will review the Kentucky General Assembly's 2025 legislative session on Kentucky Tonight. 4 lawmakers join us as we discuss the important legislation passed at KET.org as we wrap up the General Assembly session. Thanks so very much for watching. I'll see you soon and take good care.